Welcome back. This will be part 13 of the character modeling tutorial series. Last video we talked about how to block out the eyes. The only difference I've done, probably that I don't think I did the end of the last video, is just duplicate the eye shape, the spherical shape, from the left side to the right side. We will come back and make sure it's fully mirrored later. This video we're going to talk about how to correct some more edge loops from underneath the chin to above the brow line, and move around some other edge loops to correct some other things like the cranium of the skull to round off the back of the head and a couple other things. So we need to sometimes create n-gons and triangles to create proper loops around the head, and this is definitely one occasion. We need a loop that goes above the eyebrow to the in front of the ear, on the side of the head, underneath the chin. So we're going to go ahead and create that. We can't use like something like the insert edge loop tool because that won't put the loop properly for us. So instead we're going to come in here and with the multi-cut tool manually cut a loop around and then clean it all up. So from under the chin just to the outside of the loop that goes to the eye, and also the loop that goes from the nose to underneath the chin. We're going to create a loop outside of that. We're going to create a diagonal line, which will create an n-gon and a triangle for a second. We're going to work our way up. And up here again, we're going to have to create a triangle and an n-gon, and then we'll go to the forehead all the way to the center. Okay. I didn't have symmetry on. That's not a big deal. In a minute after I correct this loop, I'll come back and mirror this over and we'll see how we can correct that if you forgot to have symmetry on like I did here. So we'll work on one half of the body, then we'll mirror it over the body later. Alright, so what we need to do is convert this so that we have quads. And one thing we can try to do is with the target weld, let's go into vertex mode, take this top vertex that we just created, drag that down to the outer vertex. So that should create quads all the way around again. Create a little bit of wonkiness in the forehead, but we'll come back and correct that later. But everything is about quads up there, so that's good. The next one, we're going to take this vertex right here on the side and weld that down to the one underneath that. So once again, that'll create some quads and get us more of the form that we're looking for. So if I just take this vertex and move it up, now we have a proper edge loop. That if I select those faces, that edge loop will go all the way around. Once we mirror it back over, that'll correct the other side as well. So what we just really need to do is come around and move some of these vertices back, one for around the temple area, so that way now if I go with my insert edge loop tool, that'll create a full loop around the head there. So that's a good loop right there. It's a good time to go ahead and mirror this over. So let's go to the front view and go into face mode, and I'm just going to drag select half of the head. Make sure I only have half the head selected, and delete that out. So I don't want that side. Let's try our mirror tool, see if that'll work. Sometimes with some modeling steps, it's not going to work properly. So I'm going to select the head. The center pivot point should still be in the middle. And let's go to Mesh Mirror. Let's change the axis to Object. And for some reason, it's just not working for me again, like the previous video showed. So instead, let's undo that. And I'm going to, with my object, Control D to duplicate. And then I will do a -1 for the scale X. And combine these two together. Go back to Modeling Toolkit, combine. And then we'll do Edit Mesh Merge. We'll test out our symmetry. If I turn Symmetry Object X back on, everything is working. Good. Alright, so we're good to go back to a mirror. So that's another way that you can mirror things over without using the mirror tool. If for whatever reason, like what mine's doing, the mirror tool is not working. So we need to move some edge loops around so that the head looks a little better and actually work properly. So an easy tool for that is to use the transform constraint and edge slide. And I usually do this in vertex mode because it's a little easier to move things around. But with edge constraint, it's going to keep the edges and vertices where we kind of want them, on the geometry, but just kind of move them along the edges. So I'm just going to come in here and move some of these around. We'll move some of these up some. This will be for the chin area. So the edge constraint is a really good tool to keep the forms how you want them to be without over exaggerating vertex position. So the chin's going to be a little shorter, but I'm just going to try to turn off like edge constraint for a second. Let's look at it from a side view. If I can find the side view, there we go. So this is going to be like the tip of the chin that's kind of pulled outward some, and then we can start curling this out for the chin area. See if we can drag those, move those out some. So we're going to start to try to build the curvature of the chin going outward. And then now we can select some of these other vertices, move them out some more. This is when the chin's going to start to curl back some. Move that forward. But since my edge constraint was not on, it's going to be pulled out too much. So we'll just drag that back some more. Something like that. We'll kind of blend a little bit. Then this loop, let's turn edge slide transform constraint back on. Now I can start to move this forward some. So basically these loops need to kind of continue on around the face. This one could come down some more. Both of these could come, maybe one at a time. Come down some more. This could come down. So sometimes we just have to blend some of the edges around so that we have a little bit smoother of a form here. So we'll kind of take that one and move that one there. There we go. That's pretty good for the cheek area. So now, okay, so we got a pretty good edge loop there. We can come in here with the mesh tools, insert edge loop, and add one more loop in there that'll help define the chin and the brow line a little better. Let's turn off the transform constraint. So from the brow line, now we have a pretty good loop structure to start defining the brow a little bit more. This one can come down and in some. And this one come forward. So we need a couple more loops in order to define that brow a little better. But we at least have a good start for where the eyebrows should come out from the forehead. So we can play around with these a little bit more to even some of these edge loops out on the chin area. This one can come up here. And then this one can now move forward some. Move this one closer to the chin. Move that in. Maybe out a little bit. There you go. Move that one forward some more. So we're starting to find that chin line a little better now. And everything's still quad, so we're still pretty good as far as all the lines and the loops that we're creating. I'm just going to continue to blend some of these so that the loops are a little bit easier to see. Something like that. All right, so we're starting to get some extra loops here. We actually need to do that same process again to pull a loop from underneath the chin to roughly around where the top of the head is, so somewhere around here. So let's go back with that multi-cut. Let's create it from underneath the chin again. Try to make sure that is connected there. And let's work our way. We're gonna create another triangle there that will get us so we can have a vertical loop. Should be pulling it on the other side, so it is pretty good. And we're gonna work our way up. And then keep connecting all the way to the center of the head there. There we go. All right, so that loop will eventually go from the top of the head down to underneath the chin. So that'll be the last correction loop that we need to create. With the target weld tool in vertex mode, I'm gonna do the same thing I did earlier. So the one from the side of the chin is gonna weld down to the bottom one. And we can blend that a little more, pull that back up. This is gonna be a good one to start with for where the jawline meets the ear. So kind of pulling that up, it's a little too much, but move it out some. There we go, so that's a pretty good jawline structure. You can hopefully kind of see that jawline starting to come through now. So each time you're probably just want to blend this a little more. We'll eventually come back and create some more loops horizontally to take care of like this area right here. But overall, that's a pretty good start. One of the top's gonna be a little bit more trickier, so now we got a couple more edge loops for where the ears are gonna come out right here, which should be nice. But this one is a little trickier, so we can kind of play around with how this is gonna weld. We can weld down to this one. What we don't want is kind of some weird lines here that could cause some issues. What happens if I weld that up? So that's a pretty good starting point there. What I don't really need is necessarily for this, so because we got quads there, quad there, I really don't need this loop right there. So what I can do is take those two edges and delete those out. But now I have a triangle here that I gotta correct somehow. So there's a lot of ways we can do this. And this is not an area that's really going to show a lot of definition or deformation in a weird way. So one thing we can do is take this loop and try to connect it there. So this vertex would actually go here and to there. Okay, so that'll get rid of that edge. And then we can try to blend this a little more up here somewhere. So we can do with the target weld again. Let's see what happens when we target weld this vertex to that one. There we go. So that will create a triangle back there, so that's not going to work. You know, the crown of that head is a good area we can add some edge loops to correct that. So let's just take an edge, connect it here, and that will create some quads up there. So that is relatively a pretty good spot that we can hide some loops, something like that. Especially if you have a hat or hair or anything else like that. But even if the character's bald, that's a good area we can add a little bit more oddly shaped geometry. So now what we can do, we got a pretty good edge loops for the face, the eyes, the nose, going around the nose, going around the eyes, goggle shape around the eyes, loops around the mouth, loop from the nose to underneath the mouth, around the chin, loops from underneath the chin to above the eyebrow, and then loops from underneath the chin to the top of the head. Alright, so we can kind of play around with some of these just a little more to kind of fine-tune some of this. But overall, we have the loops where we want them to. Now we can just play around with the anatomy a little more. So that'll be it for this video as far as correcting some of the edge loops. The next video, we're going to go ahead and kind of shape up the head a little more, and then also add, extrude out the ear, add an ear into this form.